Hey guys, I'm Matt Lighty, and this video is basically being made as an extension off of my current League starter plans. The TLDR is, and I'm not changing the build. I'm still playing a Perforate of Bloodshed Gladiator. But we've just, they've released information. There's been a bunch of RAQ questions, a fucking laundry list that shed some light on how certain interactions work. And after doing some math with checking some new gem setups and stuff, it seems like we're going to probably pivot a little bit on some of the plans. I just figured this kind of merit a video, just because it's more to explain than I could type. I still have all the information here, and this video will basically be a redirect from, this stuff. I'll just put something in like, potential changes or whatever. I'll be in the description. I'll be here. All this information still in the initial post. So I'd look at this for stuff I'm updating. But yeah, so let's just go over what's changing, if anything. So there's a couple interesting things. First off is war banners. So banners were changed. We didn't really know the gem information specifically or some of the key interactions. After asking the RQ questions, we've got some information, and it's just an absurd amount of damage. And I've have multiple people check my math on this, and we've looked at it. I don't know if it's just like not right, but 10% more area of effect and aura effect per valor, so that makes the AoE of the war banner larger, and the aura effect being this part, the banner granting 4% more physical melee damage and then accuracy. Now that's per valor, so you have base 50 valor. With this small setup here, you end up getting in total 105 valor. Okay, so that's 1,000% more effect off of a 4%. Well, it's 105 off of the 1050, so it becomes 420 more physical damage with melee skills. Now, that just can't be right, but that's what the math is. And even hypothetically, if I was off an entire decimal, which it's 1,000% more effect, like I don't know how else to, 1050% more effect, maybe, I don't know how else to construe this, and the RQ said this is right, even if it was 40% more damage when you're placing your banner. So you get valor, by the way, just for those who don't know, by killing shit with melee skills or hitting rares, no more than once every 0.5 seconds, so 2 a second. So it's not every pack, it's every 6 or 7 packs, but most importantly it's on a boss, right? You can do it on a boss. Place it down when you're fighting a hard mob, because it's a redonkulous amount of damage. Alright. You also get the mastery, which just says banners also cause enemies to take 8% increased damage. When enemies take increased, it's effectively a more, so it's like a more multiplier on top of a more multiplier for a very minimal investment. Seems good. So we'll probably take that if it feels clunky, or if this for some reason isn't right. Although, again, 10% more aura effect per valor consumed. You have 105 valor. That's 1,050, percent. On top of the 4% base. Like, I don't know if the math is what. Anyway, all right. So there's that. So that we'll feel that. That'll be sure. We have missed off the gem information. We've also got the retaliations, and some of them are great, but some of them are not great. For a bleed build, they've got wonky numbers, right? You have things like crushing fist. Yes, it says 2,200 increased attack damage, but when you realize that it can't be, it can't be exerted or something. There's some reasons why there's a whole breakdown on Reddit why this is shit. But also it has a negative multiplier for elements. But eviscerate, being the bleed one, does not, and it has crazy multipliers. So the effective added damage is 1345 at 2020. It causes bleeds. Yeah, it should have some decent AOE, and it triggers off of blocks. So no, it's not going to be used that frequently, but it's frequently enough that you're probably going to run a 4-link with this, and if it really, you can invest into retaliation things on the tree. There are wheels for it, etc. This is, again, on a touch basis. If retaliations 4 bleeds are as good as you imagine, and right, we're hitting one Mega Bleed off an Eviscerate, that's where you go Aggravated Assault. That's where you spec into triggering Retaliations more frequently, because when you have the measured Retaliation, there's a 50% chance that you could just, it doesn't go on cooldown. And there's also one of the quote-unquote secret annoyance, the King of the Hill. There's another 20% chance. So it's a 50% chance that you could just pop it again. Again, that's a feel thing, but I would say we're looking to run maybe a 4-link Eviscerate setup. You get it quite early on. We'll be messing with it there and checking that out. So the other concern I was having, and I've been back and forth about this after looking at some stuff, which has caused me to do some minor tree routing, is I'm concerned about the mana. I think it's gonna fucking annoy me. And after seeing the numbers on Grace and Determination, I feel like I'd rather just run a Blessing and then run Petrified Blood. I thought about this on, was it Monday night or Sunday? And I was like, all right, so that's fine. So Eternal Blessing plus Pride, free Pride, sure. If you wanted it at the very beginning, you could run Purity of Elements because you want element immunity. That's fine. You want damage, go Pride. Petrified plus Blood plus Vitality. That takes care of our life regen, or recoup, I should say, and then Petrified Blood makes it so we don't get one shot. And there was something else I was looking at that was really interesting. I think one of my teammates, Manny, brought it up, or maybe it was Leggy, one of the two. And that is, with the buffs to ward, it's actually going to be pretty insane for block builds, right? So you spec into things, for example, like max block across the board, versatile combatant, every amount of block you can get, block, plus lucky block, puts us at 90, close to 90% all block. All right, we're not getting hit that frequently. Dots we mitigate with our vitality and our life regen. Because we're technically low life with Petrified Blood, you can get things like Brink of Death, so it's like 3 points for 5 point whatever life regen, so that's cool. And ward is refreshes quite frequently now, so you can even do things like have ward gear. So just for like your helm, your boots, your gloves, you could just run ward pieces, because we don't really care too much about armor evasion. We want a little bit of armor evasions, whatever, but you could run ward pieces. So like I could really see myself running some ward bases here, and even there's a new unique belt that gives you ward. Could be a cool thing. I added some basic gear to this setup. This will be in the description below. Again, I want to reiterate, and I did in the previous video, but I want to reiterate again. There's a lot of maybes with things I'm running because I'm not sure how things feel. Neither does any other human who's played this game, because no one's ever used an Eviscerate before because it's not out yet. So I don't know how it's going to feel. No one's ever placed a banner in this certain circumstance and done a manual Warcry with this sort of setup. So I have this other tree for this blood magic in a slightly different variation, because I'm leaning towards this versus the other one, but I might flip-flop. Nothing's set in stone. They're both totally viable, okay? Just want to reiterate that. Because we're Petrified Blood, we're running things like Duresso's Courage and Lori's, just because we're getting advantage of the low-life stuff. They're very good early on. I just tossed some basic gear on here. Like, nothing is unattainable important, and most of these things I didn't even add, rolls for, and plus it's just the idea of you want life and res on most of these pieces, because that's what you want. You want a Physax with some attack speed, a Carnage Heart, a basic thing, a basic ring, that sort of jazz. Feels good. So that's like the basics for the gear stuff. Like, this is kind of what you want in a rare jewel: life, res, fizz multi, and an abyss jewel: life, res, fizz. Okay, so that's understandable. Skill setups, I tossed on Bloodthirst here. I thought the added flat might be beneficial because of all the added effectiveness, and if we're going blood magic, it makes more sense. Possibly, again, that's going to be a field-based thing. Cast and damage taken setup, I think this is probably set in stone. It's Molten Shell, because we'll probably have a decent chunk of armor from Gear and Shield. Vuln, because Vuln could be cool. Although, in general, Vuln is being changed. Where's the exact wording here? To Aggravated, right? So, I don't know. That's kind of worthless in a way. It's interesting, because it says it's removing bleed and duration, right? But currently it still has increased physical damage taken, so I think that's I'm assuming that's staying the same. As long as that's the same, that's fine. Not a big deal. Again, Molten Shell mitigation. Frostbomb, we use this just because of basic progression When you get a tanky regen mob, it's annoying. Maven influence stuff, it's annoying. Aura setup, this is because of blood magic. Again, you wouldn't use using the base thing. And then the duration for the banner, it's now a more multiplier, but banner's base speed, I think, was it War Banner 12 seconds? 12 seconds. So 12 seconds plus a 50-ish% more. So, you know, whatever. 18 seconds, 16 seconds. Should be fine. If, again, it feels clunky, I won't use it. Is it the same as the totem meta? Not as frequently per packs, but maybe way more aggressive for single target. Again, like, this, I don't know if this math is, this, I don't know how else you can interpret this, but 1050 more aura effect on a 4% more is 420, plus the AoE goes fucking ballistic for any sort of 6th pack engagement. Seems crazy. Blood Rage, we get charges, we get leech, seems fine. Basic movement speed setup, a little stuff there with a little leaping and then frosting and then culling because free call. The tree I've wangled a little bit, and there's some things I still, again, I'm on the fence about, like, you know, does it really make sense even to grab Iron Reflexes for 1 point? I'm converting an amount of evasion into armor that I probably won't have much of. If I do ward, you wouldn't pick this up. If you go armor evasion gear, like the standardized Dragon Scale XYZ or whatever the new version of that is, yeah, there's no reason not to pick up Iron Reflexes. It sucks being stunned. I like to pick up in Wavering just because it feels good. And, yeah, you know, picking up Deflection for Endurance Unblock, I think we're probably going to go that route, maybe. I'm a little bit concerned about Elite Mitigation to a degree. Fizzman I'm not so much about because we have so much block. And Life Regen, it's kind of whatever. Banner setup, again, contextual. I do not know how it'll feel. Brink of Death is if you're low life and blood magic. If not, I probably would just pick a party because I think it's as effective. Fortify I'm on the fence about. Yeah, this is one of those things where it's like, I could see you dropping Bloodthirst and just running Fortify because it might be better. If my effective health pool isn't that high, chance to bleed, it's probably going to outperform Fortify. 2% of max life when on low, added as flat. Don't have too much life. I'll be at like 5k. We don't have all the life masteries, but you could maybe invest more in that. That's more of like a two-hand bonk thing, so I'm not sure how that's going to feel there. Not much else for stuff that I've changed at all. Again, blood magic, just because I'm worried about the mana, but it might not be worth it, so forget that. And then Vanquisher, just because I think this is just effective damage gain to fizz dot over time, and then fizz, and then getting the increased skills that cost life. If we're playing blood magic, obviously that's just 3 damage. This one part I like here. I think this is probably worth pivoting to. I don't really think this matters until you're in red maps. You're not really rolling high crit rate, and enemies typically don't have a substantial amount of crit rate early on, so eventually I would for sure grab this Sanctum of Thought plus the Mastery. That coupled with Juggernaut plus the Mastery, there's your 80% reduced damage from crits, which is basically crit immunity. You'll still get ailmented, you'll still get status if you get crit, but to me that's like kind of enough mitigation. And yeah, and then again, like we've not had a strict clarification on how presence works for bosses that like might be emoting or talking or aren't in yet. Like if you walk into Shaper's area and he spends 15 seconds doing his fucking spiel where he's like, I found the Atlas or whatever, you know, that whole thing. If that starts ticking for you in your presence, that makes sense. Like, I think this is really only beneficial from a bossing standpoint, and I think it's the only part of the build you might have issues with, but maybe it won't be irrelevant. And if it isn't and Eviscerate's better, boom, measure Retaliation. Or if it just feels like weird and like resets too often and it's annoying to keep up, you could just pick Weapon Master, and then that's just 30% more on low for the enemy, which is on average 15% overall. So a lazy 15% more there. And then that's fine too. There's a lot of, again, I've said this 90%, you know, every of these videos a fucking 1,000 times, but like, no one knows exactly how some of these things are going to feel, so we're just trying some stuff. Specking off of Aggravated and doing Crimson Dance just because of the frequency of hits from Perforate, which is why we slapped on Multi-Strike. This might feel like shit. Eviscerate just might be better as a targeted bleed skill overall. It might have decent uptime, in which case you're not even going to run Perforate. You're just going to put in Eviscerate because I'm just going to walk into a pack, get hit once, trigger Retaliation, hit the button, everything blows up because I'm exploding and I'm hitting a bajillion damage bleed, and then that's fine too. So or just going to run something like this early on, because I think that the value of having the Crimson Dance plus the Perforate with a very fast attack speed might be more beneficial than getting an Aggravated. The one cool part about Jagged Techniques that we got clarification on is that any instance of on hit to aggravate on tree or on gear doesn't trigger bleed in the first hit, right? So I hit once, boom, I say I have a 15% chance to aggravate, and I hit it. Well, that first hit I did isn't aggravated. It's now, you are now aggravated for the next hits, and now when I do subsequent damage, that does it. So if you're doing a slow, bonky thing, that's like less good for that, but more frequent makes more sense. But if you're attacking frequently enough to stack up 8 times, Crimson Dance is just more damage either way. But I think slow hitting things like an Eviscerate, Jagged Techniques is the play, because Bleeding You Afflict is always aggravated, meaning even that first hit you do with the Eviscerate, that first one big Eviscerate is going to proc the bleed. So we'll see how that feels. I think that's basically it. I don't really know what else there is to discuss as far as plans I have or like possible pivots, but I really would suggest, I made this kind of like as a courtesy amendment, just to reiterate the fact that I'm, you know, I don't follow anything I'm doing here to the T, because I'm experimenting heavily with what I might be using. I might be repicking up the Fortify, I might be not going Blood Magic because the mana feels good enough. I don't know. I just don't know yet. That's why we're messing around with stuff. So yeah, I would recommend, if anything, following the build diaries I'll be doing every day. At the end of each stream, I'll do a quick little diary. I probably won't do it for like maybe the first day, or maybe I will the next morning I wake up, because typically on launch weekend I stream about 15 hours a day for 3 days in a row, if not more. So I'm pretty fucking fried at the end of that. But you'll be getting, you'll definitely be getting at least basic updates where I go over the build stuff. But if you're looking for the archetypal videos, this one and then the one linked in the description, the previous video, that's where I would redirect you. There's about 1 billion other people who are playing Bleed. I'm sure we're all sharing similar ideas. If somebody has some sort of epiphany of an interaction that none of us are catching, love to hear about it, but I'm sure we'll find out on launch weekend. So that's it. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to ask them. But I think this is more of a well-rounded version for launch, but again, it could be total dog shit, and maybe we're all just going to be spamming Retaliates on a life-stacking Bloodthirst build. Who knows? But yeah, I'm Matt Lighty. If you have any questions, ask them in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next video. If not, I'll catch you on League launch. Bye-bye.